In this video, we're going to be showing you how to prepare eggs 7 different ways. We're going to start out with scrambled, which is one of the most popular ways to eat eggs. And it's pretty simple, and there's a pretty basic formula for it. So to begin with, you always want to crack your eggs on a flat surface to prevent the shell from contacting the inside of the egg. And that may seem a little strange because everybody's used to cracking it on the side of a bowl. But the reason that you do this is that pretty much 1 in every 20,000 eggs has salmonella on the inside of it, so your risk of contamination is pretty small there. But a lot of eggs, especially ones that are grown on a farm, are contaminated on the outside, so we want to keep the outside of the egg from coming in contact with the inside of the egg. After that, you're going to add a tablespoon of liquid per egg, and you can add a little bit less than this, but you don't want to add more than a tablespoon of liquid per egg. And what liquid that you choose is really personal based on whatever health goals or things that you want to have. So you can use Greek yogurt or cottage cheese if you're trying to add some extra protein into your diet, or if you're just trying to have good scrambled eggs that are simple, you can use milk, water, or whatever plant milk that you like almond milk or oat milk or things like that. Then after that, you want to season it at least with salt and pepper. You don't have to add a ton of salt in the beginning because you can always add that afterwards. But you can also add some other herbs and spices as well, just to make sure that there's flavor throughout the eggs and not just on top when it's done cooking. Then you're going to whisk that or beat it with a fork until everything is smooth and all looks the same, and you don't see any lumps or little pieces of the white or the yolk that aren't really worked in. So after that, you're going to take your butter and you're going to heat that butter on medium. We are not putting the heat on high, but you're going to heat it until the butter kind of foams and bubbles a little bit, and it's going to brown a little bit as well. And then after that, you're going to add in your eggs. And you don't want to have this on too high a temperature because it's very easy for those eggs to seize up and just squeeze all the liquid out of them, and that's how you end up with eggs that are kind of soggy and separated. So you're going to add the eggs to the pan and just let them sit for a second. Don't just immediately start moving them around. Let them sit, let the edges solidify. As you can see, the edges are starting to lighten up. And then you can start moving them around a little bit and letting those curds form, and fold them over until your desired doneness is reached. And this is going to be kind of personal based on your preference. Some people like them a little brown and harder cooked. Some people like them a little softer. And so that's something that you can keep in mind and kind of learn your own preference on. A heat-proof silicone spatula is going to work really well for non-stick pans, just to make sure you're not scraping that finish off. But the biggest thing is you always want to take these out of the pan a little bit before they're done, or a little bit before you think that they're finished, because they are going to continue to cook after you pull them off the heat, even after you put them on the plate. So that is something that you want to be careful of. So after this, we're going to go into your fried eggs. And fried eggs are something that's pretty personal based on your preference, but first we're going to start with the Sunnyside up. And when you are making any sort of fried eggs, it's going to seem kind of almost gross, but you're going to put enough fat in the pan to almost float the egg. And it's going to take this because eggs got a lot of protein in it and it tends to stick to the pan a whole lot. So you can put a lot of fat in the pan. You can use bacon grease that you've cooked bacon in already, butter or oil. If you're using bacon grease, you do want to strain out any of the little bacon bits that are in there because that can cause things to burn a little bit more easily, so do strain that bacon fat. Then you're going to gently slide your egg in. As you can see, the oil is pretty hot, and so we do get some bubbling, which is going to make crispy edges. But you're going to gently slide that egg in and then spoon the fat over the white, avoiding the yolk, and that's going to cook the top of the white as well. So once the white is fully white and not clear, you're going to remove it from the pan. You can assist with the heat-proof spatula if you need to, with one of the silicone ones to kind of slide it onto the spatula. But be careful because that yolk is going to be super easy to break because it's just kind of sitting there. The yolk is going to be very, very runny and not really cooked much of anything. After that, we're going to go to the over easy, over medium, and over hard. And these are a little bit tougher because we do have to flip them. And so if you are making these eggs, you might have to practice some to master them. So once again, we're starting with enough fat to float the egg, and you want to make sure it's warm before you put your eggs in there. Otherwise, those eggs are just going to soak up all the fat and get too greasy. So then you're going to slide your egg in gently like you did before. And one thing that's going to help if your pan is sticking a little bit, you can take that heat-proof silicone spatula and just kind of gently slide it into the edges of the egg just to make sure that it lifts up off the bottom so that it's a little bit easier to flip. And you are going to very gently flip. This is not the time to get really fancy with it because you are trying not to break the yolk. And so be very gentle with it. Take your time and practice this, but you're just sliding it in and just kind of scooping it over, and don't lift it too far off. On the second side, you're only cooking it for about 15 to 30 seconds because you're not really cooking the yolk a whole lot. And then you're just going to gently lift that out to the plate, and you want to be careful that you're not breaking the yolk in this case as well. And as you can see, we have a little bit of a difference because you've got your white on top of the over easy eggs. So for over medium, your process is going to be pretty much exactly the same. You're just going to cook your egg a little bit longer on that second side. And these times are a little bit of an estimate, but for me, it takes about a minute on that second side. So process is the same, gets just a little bit browner. And then for your over hard eggs, you're going to follow the same procedure, but on that second side, you're going to cook it for about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes because your goal in this is to get your yolk almost completely cooked. It's not going to be really runny at all. And so as you can see, we're cutting the yolks on each of these and seeing how runny they are. On the Sunnyside, it's just completely runny. The over easy, it's going to slide out very, very easily. The over medium, it's not going to run quite as much. And then the over hard, it's not really going to run at all. It's going to kind of stick where it is. And so that's how you make fried eggs. So now we're going to go into boiled and deviled eggs. And this is a little bit of a different procedure for making boiled eggs than you may be used to, but it also requires less babysitting, so that's a good thing. So first of all, you're going to put your eggs in cold water in a pot and make sure they are completely covered. And it is a little bit easier to put these in the water rather than putting them in the pot and then adding water because they are less likely to break. And then you're going to take that cold water and bring it all the way up to a boil. And starting with the cold water is important here because we are not waiting for it to boil and then setting a timer. So once that comes to a boil, you're going to turn your heat off and just let it sit in the hot water for 20 minutes. And that is going to hard boil them so that you don't have to babysit them and watch them and monitor them and all that kind of stuff. And if you forget them for a little bit, it's not the end of the world. So then once they've sat for that 20 minutes, you're going to pour your hot water out and then fill your pot with some ice and some water just to cool the eggs down so we can get those cool for your next step of the process, because we are going to be peeling the eggs and we don't want them to be super, super hot. And let them cool for a little bit, and then you're just going to tap those eggs and peel them. And you're just tapping them on a flat surface until you get little cracks all around, and the peel should slide off pretty easily. Funny thing is, in this particular case, older eggs are actually going to be a little bit easier because as they sit around, there's some airspace that builds up in the shell that makes it a little bit easier to pop off. But you do want to try to get underneath that membrane, and then it should mostly slide off pretty easily. So the best thing to do with boiled eggs, I will always say, is to make deviled eggs. And so what you're going to do is take those eggs and you're going to cut them in half and then just pop your yolks into a bowl and then set your whites onto a plate ready to fill and just pop those out. And they should pop out pretty easily. If you break some of the whites in this case, it's not the end of the world. It just means you'll end up with some extra filling. So then you are going to mash your yolks with a whisk or a fork just to kind of get them started breaking up. If you have a whisk that has kind of tight tines, that works pretty well for breaking up those pieces. And then you are going to add Duke's mayonnaise and Duke's mayonnaise only. Then some mustard. You can use either Dijon or yellow mustard depending on your preference. And then you want to add some sweet relish. And that is, sometimes you can use the sandwich relish, which is the mayonnaise that already has the relish in there. And then to season this, you're going to add some salt, some pepper, and then depending on how sweet your relish is, you may need to add a little bit of extra sugar. And if you're using dill relish that doesn't have any sugar, you're definitely going to want to add a little bit of sugar in there. I usually add a good bit of extra pepper. And then if you want to pipe the filling, which I generally do because it looks a little bit prettier, I will use a hand mixer to mix this up just because it breaks everything up and makes the filling a little smoother. And it comes out of the piping bag a little bit easier. If you're just going to be spooning this into it, you can use a spoon or a rubber spatula or whatever works for you. You don't want to mix it too long though, because it can get kind of a gummy texture if you mix it too long. So then you're going to cuff a pastry bag or a zip top bag over top of a cup, and that's going to help you fill it up a little bit easier and make it easier to twist down. And then you just scrape your filling into that cup and then twisting from the top. So if you see my hand position where the top of the bag is in the space between my pointer finger and my thumb, that is where the filling should kind of stay. You just twist down from that point as you go. And then you're just going to twist down into the whites. And anytime you're using a pastry bag, that's the way that you're going to do it. You're going to continue to twist down and keep that space of your hand at the top of wherever the filling happens to be. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've got some tips and tricks that you can use. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because subscribing helps out our channel a whole lot.